Good morning. It is Tuesday, April 26th, 2022. Welcome to another edition of the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. Elon Musk has managed to put together $46.5 billion in funding to acquire Twitter. Musk made his main agenda, as he has vociferously claimed, is free speech. He wants to buy Twitter so that he can keep it as is and shape it to his vision as a self-confessed free speech absolutist, he said. Musk mentioned in the letter he wrote to the Twitter board earlier this month that Twitter is the platform for free speech around the world, but this social imperative cannot be realized if Twitter remains in its current form, and thus it needs to be transformed as a private company. There's also the whole deal about the edit button on Twitter. Amongst all this, many American right-wingers have been treating Musk's bid as a win for conservatives, a chance to get revenge on the company for banning Donald Trump in 2020. We discussed that and more with attorney Robert Tarver of the Tarver Law Firm and Rashonda Tate Billingsley of the Defender Network. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Well, attorney Tarver, let's start. Let's start with this. Elon Musk, Twitter. What does this mean for free speech, as he says?
Well, look, the bottom line to this whole thing is realistically that Elon Musk has made it very clear that he has not approved of Twitter's current form. The fact that they have been heavy on what he calls censorship, the fact that they have been blocking individuals who have expressed views who basically Twitter has found to be outside of the mainstream and dangerous to public society. Now, the real question is whether or not he would be in a position of changing that. Now, that could be frightening, very frightening to a number of different people, because when it comes down to the mantra of free speech can equate to bullying in certain types of situations. And when I say bullying, I'm not talking about on the micro level of person to person. I'm talking on the macro level of members of society. Particularly, we as people of color have been on the bullying end of free speech. Now, I'm a free speech advocate, but the fact of the matter is there has to be some regulation. Even our law recognizes some regulation. But we live in a society where there are rights and obligations. So if you have the right to be able to speak, there's also an obligation to make sure that your speech is not injuring and hurting other people unduly.
Yeah, Rashonda. So there's a lot of things here. Now Elon Musk, as I was saying to Attorney Tarver, is he going to be the regulator of free speech? He keeps talking about that, but what does that truly mean in 2022 speak and Twitter speak? He's he's different.
He is. And Twitter is about to become the wild, wild west because Elon Musk is this character. He loves being flamboyant, over the top. And that's what Twitter is about to turn into, because he's going to allow his quote unquote free speech. But just like you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, there has to be some limitations to free speech. And I think that he's about to let it all loose on Twitter and let people say what they want, do what they want. And I think he's going to sit back and just watch the fire burn.
Yeah, and guys, obviously, Twitter's had a race problem, right, with these algorithms, and recognizing white faces and black faces, and do we expect that to get any better, or do we expect it to implode in its entirety?
No, I expect it to continue in its form. Yeah, I'm of a different view. I don't believe that Musk is going to do anything seriously radical anytime soon. Because you got to remember, Elon Musk has other business interests. And although he talks a big game in a lot of different areas, in terms of his actual business movement, he hasn't made a whole lot. He hasn't really been radical in his business decisions. So his other companies, Tesla, SpaceX, and the other companies that he's brought to Texas there and has resided there, he's got to be very careful, because although they are in Texas, which appears to be a right-wing hotbed, they are controlled also by stockholders who are outside of Texas. So I don't really expect those algorithms to really change that much. But you know what? This is a really interesting thing for the other companies that sprung up as an alternative to Twitter, the Parlors and the others who were the right-wing so-called Twitters. Whether or not they're going to survive, that's going to be a real interesting scenario.
Well, and we know too the 2016 election, the 2020 election, there was a lot of misinformation, disinformation, intentional with bots and things of that nature, the Russian interference. How do we see that playing out now with Elon Musk at the head of Twitter?
Well, he says that he's going to get rid of those. He says that's one of the things that he dislikes most about Twitter. And, we can only wait and see if he actually does, but you're getting rid of the bots and the some of those do weather. Some of those are good, but a lot of that was bad. That's how a lot of that information was disseminated, particularly through the African-American community through those bots. So we'll see. I do agree with Attorney Tolliver in terms of his business. And I think that if he does allow Twitter to get out of control, then that's how we respond. We as consumers, we respond with his other businesses. And at the end of the day, he's still a businessman. And so I can see if his other business is being affected, then I can see him some type of way trying to rein it in a little bit.
But there's a larger picture here. And here's the larger picture. We are seeing a proliferation of right-wing media. And the question is whether or not this move by Elon Musk is another acquisition, so to speak, by the right wing and a turn toward right wing media. The problem is that where media is controlling any particular area or where it's allowed to control, it is going to change minds. It is going to shape the narrative, and it is going to shape the electorate. And history has shown that right-wing shaping has always been against people of color, and particularly Black people. So there's something larger to look at here. Is this another move? Is this another Newsmax move? Is it another OAN move? Is it another Fox? Where are we going with all this? I don't see on the other side any progressive media popping up. I don't see any progressive billionaires and billionaires looking to move forward into this sphere. And here's what's troublesome, and I'm just going to stop at this. You have Black millionaires who could inject themselves into this type of forum of being political, of shaping minds, but they don't seem to do it. We seem to be concentrated in the entertainment vein. And that's something that we as a people, I think, need to get out of and to move beyond.
Well, one of the big elephants in the room, of course, is whether or not he'll allow Donald Trump back on the platform. Trump has said he's going to stay with Truth Social. But you mentioned something there, Attorney Tarver, and Rashonda, perhaps you can comment on that. Is there a possibility that we will see maybe not a Black Twitter, but something else to rival Twitter?
I think that space is filled. Once you co-opt the market, you co-opted it. Remember there was Black Planet and MySpace and Facebook all at the same time, and Facebook just came in and collapsed that entire market. I think that's the same thing with Twitter. I don't know that there's room for another. That's just my opinion.
Yeah,
I agree. Unfortunately, what will happen is you will have a lot of us in the Black community that even if there was another platform started, you have a lot of us like, oh no, I'm going to stay over here. I'm not going to go over to the Black social media platform. And so because you're fighting that uphill battle, unfortunately, I don't see a Black social media platform surviving.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see as we follow this even more what Elon Musk will do eventually with Twitter. I mean, nothing's going to happen for at least a couple of months, right? So we'll find out because these deals, $47 billion, doesn't, the papers are not, it doesn't happen overnight, right, Tarver?
No.
These type of deals.
You've got quite a process here for him to move forward. And look, the deal's not really done yet at this point. There could be hiccups and wrinkles that cause something to fall through. But for all intents and purposes, this is going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen next week or even next month, but it will happen probably before the end of 2022.
And
Well,
I see,
go
Stacey, a
ahead.
lot of people being upset at Twitter for selling in the first place. And I think people don't realize that Twitter is not in the business to give us some place to air our grievances. Twitter's in the business to make some money. And if somebody's waving $47 billion, it'd be financial malpractice for you not to take that deal.
Yeah, and the Twitter board did try. They tried to hold out on this thing. They didn't want this to happen. They actually were going to employ a poison pill, but they didn't get a chance to do that. So they weren't necessarily willing participants in this.
Yeah, I see Lauren Burke mentions fan base as another alternative or an option anyway. David Youngblood says Twitter has never made a profit, so take the money. Like you said, I like how you put it, Rashonda. It would be just malpractice. Come on, $47 billion.
For people that are at home and watching, I mean, just think about if your house is worth $100,000 and somebody comes along and says, "But I know you like your house, but I'm going to give you, $20 million for it."
Buy a house. See ya. Listen, before we move on to our next topic, just a note: we found out overnight Cedric Richmond is leaving the White House. He's leaving his role. He becomes the most key of Biden's support system, if you will, to announce that he's leaving the White House. So we are still getting information on that, but apparently Cedric Richmond has decided to leave the White House. He's going to be moving over to doing work with the DNC nationally. So we'll see how that plays out. But Cedric Richmond is leaving the White House. I'll just throw it to you, Attorney Tarver, and you, Rashonda. Any thoughts on this departure? I see it as a huge loss for the Biden administration.
Yeah, I see it as that too. I mean, he was the voice in there that we thought would be one who was representing a lot of Black interests. And there's a real question as to why he's leaving. Timing is very interesting. And also the fact that a number of different faux pas have happened with the Biden administration in terms of their communication with the Black community and getting out the message, getting out, dealing with our agenda. I don't know that Richmond was heard as much as he should have. So it's really interesting that he's leaving at this time.
Yeah, Rashonda, any thoughts on the departure of Cedric Richmond from the White House?
Yeah, I agree. This is a hit to the Biden administration, especially when you see that they're in totality, they're losing some key African American people in their administration, from their press secretaries on down, and so they really going to have to make some adjustments because these were our voices in the Biden administration. So it'll be interesting to see who they bring in as place.
Yeah, definitely. So opening up for the first time about the trauma that she experienced being shot 2 years ago, Grammy Award winner Megan Thee Stallion described her fear not only of her assailant, but of police officers. She told Gayle King, "I was lying to protect all of us from the police, and sometimes I wish I would have never said that." The Houston-born artist, whose real name is Megan P., told Gayle King that her alleged assailant, Tory Lanez, offered her $1 million not to say anything. And she said she just needed help at that time. She needed a doctor. She was shot in both her feet. First of all, Attorney Tarver, I'll start with you on the legal side of this. This is really interesting to see her open up, because just last month, Tory Lanez was hauled into court, had to post bail again for talking about the case publicly. Now she's talking about it on a major platform.
Well, look, you cannot equate the two. And this is the problem that I've seen lately. Tory Lanez is dealing with a criminal situation from a criminal court and a criminal sanction that says that as a part of your sanction, you cannot do X, Y, and Z at the risk of potential criminal penalties. Megan Thee Stallion does not have that prescription. She's able to speak about this. She's not limited. She's not the one who allegedly committed any type of criminal act. So she's in a totally different position than he is. So people are trying to equate the two. Hey, how come she can speak and he can't? Well, you know what? He's the one who pulled the gun. He shot her in the feet. She's a victim here. And victims have certain rights now in our society. And one of those rights is to be able to express yourself as to the victimization that you endured. And that's what she's doing.
And Rashonda, talk about this angle, if you will. And you're out in Texas. Meg is from Texas, but talk about this. She made some comments that were really interesting. They were they're very deep. She talked about being a Black woman, trying to protect a Black man, pretty much in this situation. Her assailant, trying to protect him, but also worrying about any potential interaction this Black man might have with law enforcement.
As Black women, we do that often. You've seen that over the years, that we know this system. We know the system has not been fair to Black men, and so a lot of times, to our own detriment, we will work hard to keep the man out of the system. And I think that's initially where Megan Thee Stallion was going. As you were saying earlier about her speaking, what Megan is saying is all a matter of public record. It is, this is information that we know, that we're just now hearing it from her. And I think she's just tired of listening to all of the people come to Tory Lanez defense. Even as I was reading an article yesterday, the comments on that, just blasting Megan and, saying that her tears were fake, just saying that she was at fault. Why did she get to talk? But at no point were you seeing the majority of people coming in support of a Black woman who felt like she'd been wronged. And I think Megan just got tired of that.
Yeah, and let's also think about her full statement, Stacey. She said
Yeah.
she was trying to protect all of us.
Yes,
that included herself and the other people there. Because what happens sometimes in these situations is it's not just the individual who has allegedly committed the act that gets the brunt of the police, but it's any of the witnesses who are there. And a lot of times the police come in and, like bulls in a china shop, do destruction first, ask questions later. Now, that's not for all police, but that happens far too often in the Black community. And so her statement about protecting all of us included herself, because she didn't need to be victimized twice. Once by being shot, and secondly by the police, who may have abused her as a victim. It happens over and over again. And I understand that sentiment, even though I've been both a prosecutor and a defense attorney for more than 30 years.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, when you hear her speak. She simply wanted to leave the party. She says it was an argument because I was ready to go and everybody else wasn't ready to go. But that's like normal friend stuff, she said. She says we fuss about silly stuff all the time, but I never put my hands on anybody. I never raised my voice too loud. This was one of the times where it shouldn't have gone this crazy. All she wanted to do was go home. And she mentioned how Tory Lanez took out a gun and started shooting toward her feet, telling her to dance. And that was just, she's tired. She wants to go home. This is really a situation that should have been avoided, right? Could have been avoided, should have been avoided. But more importantly, she talked about too, this idea that she lost her mom and she felt like these people, she gravitated to these people, that circle that she was with, because she was looking for family. She wanted family. So she's victimized in a lot of ways here, Rashonda.
Yeah, and that hit her hard. She had lost her grandmother as well, so she's really dealing with trying to find a place to fit in. And what has happened is, Megan has experienced a lot of fame. So now you get to the point where you're wondering, who are my friends because they're my friends, and who are my friends because they genuinely like me? And so I think that she has always tried to keep her circle tight, and she definitely didn't want to bring any type of undue attention, any police, any of that into their what she called friends situation.
Yeah, go ahead, Attorney Tarver.
How about we talk about this? What are you, as an entertainer, as a person of means, what are you doing running around with a handgun? What has happened to our entertainers? What has happened to our athletes? What has happened to our larger figures that they feel that they have to have this expression of masculinity by having a handgun with them? I mean, I know the society at large is involved in this whole thing, but in particular in our communities, what is going on with our entertainers? There's I think a very strong psychosis that deals with this hypermasculinity that's attached to guns, that's attached to aggressive behavior, walking up on stages and slapping people, all that kind of stuff like that. I'm gonna include that. We have a problem. And we need to solve this problem. Look, if you needed security as a public figure, you hire security. You hire people who are able to have guns. You hire people who take care of that and deal with those situations. But just to do this type of thing shows a type of depravity that is getting to be endemic amongst our entertainers. And it's a problem, and we need to start calling these things out. Stop being silent. Let's talk about this misbehavior, this hyper masculinity, this craziness that we're now involved in.
Yeah, you mentioned a great point. Greer and I were talking about this. I believe it was Greer and I who was talking about this. But even ASAP Rocky gets off the plane, last week, arrested in Los Angeles for shooting someone back in November of 2021. Here's a guy, he's not only is he wealthy and famous, but he's having a baby with perhaps the most famous and wealthy Black woman on the planet, right? How do you, and Tarver touched on it, he talked about it, Rashonda, I want you to piggyback off what Tarver is saying, unless you have a different view on that, but these guys, they have enough money for security. They have enough money that they don't have to go shooting people.
And I wish that they could get to the mindset that, I have fans regardless. I don't need to carry a weapon to be this big bad guy. I cannot for the life of me understand. You barely got back in the country. You have all kind of issues, and then you want to walk around with a gun. Hire the dude next to you to walk around with a gun. And I just don't understand the mindset. And if maybe they don't fear the arrest, maybe they're like, the arrests are just another notch in my belt. But it is definitely a mindset that needs to change.
Music and motion pictures. Music is the vanguard of a society, such that you could look at any society, listen to their music, and see where they are as a society at any given time. To the extent that we have music and motion pictures who promote this type of behavior amongst ordinary people on the street, and in particular, coming from those entertainers in their music, in their films, that is where we are. And until we change that, and people don't want to deal with this subject about the music and the content, about the movies and the content, we say, oh, no, that's not a problem. It is a problem. We have degenerated and allowed the degeneration in music and in film. And until we deal with that, you cannot expect the younger people who come up watching this to expect that their society is any different. This is what they see as society, and this is what they emulate, and that's who they're going to be. And until we deal with that, I fear we're into a long, long road.
Yeah, and Rashonda mentioned about the fans. You got some artists, Beyonce, for instance, who in many cases probably doesn't need a security guard. Her fans will take a bullet for her. You have superstars like that. Who, they hire bodyguards because you have crazy people out there, but their fans are more, in their minds, they're more than just fans. They're protectors, and you see that on social media, the protector of these celebrities. You see it in the streets. They're going to protect their idol. And so this is really, Tarver, I'm glad you brought up what you did, this mentality with these musicians and entertainers, not just the musicians, the entertainers too. There needs to be a conversation, and a lot of people need to be listening to that conversation. And maybe Tarver is the one to lead that conversation.
Well, unfortunately, I lead it every day with my clients. I mean, I'm on the front lines of this. I'm on the front lines of seeing how young people are affected by this, how they emulate and imitate this type of behavior, how they tie handguns into masculinity, how if you don't carry one, then you're soft. And this the change has to come from up top down. It can't come from the bottom up.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, this morning, Simon and their calls for a renewed investigation into the killing of Emmett Till. Relatives and activists are advocating another possible path toward accountability in Mississippi. They want authorities to launch a kidnapping prosecution against the woman who set off the lynching by accusing the teenager of improper advances in 1955. Carolyn Bryant Dunham, was named nearly 67 years ago in a warrant that accused her in Emmett Till's abduction, even before his mangled body was found in a river. FBI records show, yet she was never arrested or brought to trial in a case that shocked the consciences of the world for its brutality. Obviously, I got to go to the lawyer first, and then Rashonda, you can take us home with this. But Attorney Tarver, 67 years ago, could a kidnapping charge stick?
Well, look, the idea is that there's a warrant, and a warrant never expires until that warrant is dealt with. But the fact of the matter is, the only thing that they could really deal with here in kidnapping or conspiracy is going to be based on witness testimony. And quite frankly, we just don't have it anymore. Those witnesses are not alive. Those witnesses have deceased. So it will be very difficult, number one, to even find and locate the warrant. But number two, to move forward with an effective prosecution. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's sad. We know who did this. They confessed to doing that, and they were associated with her. This should have been initiated a long time ago. But unfortunately, it just appears to me that we're out of time and out of luck on this one.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. Like you said, it could have been done a long, long time ago. Lauren Burke says we have Carolyn Bryant around right now to deal with. So things come up. Rashonda?
Yeah, I don't see us being able to get anything out of this case, other than some publicity and attention to it. This case bothers my soul, how they didn't disturb her because she was a mother with 2 young children, and unfortunately now she's an old white woman, and so I can see this case not going very far, because once the media gets it, they're going to say it's not worth it. Once it continues to get more attention, she's going to cry. She's gonna cry the white tears, the old white tears, and they're gonna leave her alone. But legal wise, as Attorney Tarver said, I don't see that there's anything there that they can really pull from to prosecute this case.
And just so your viewers understand, the only tie-in to her here is she's always maintained that he groped her and grabbed her. There is no contrary evidence, although one author did say at one particular point that she said to him something different, but there's no documentation of that. But the only tie-in is that there was a voice that was heard when he was abducted saying that that's him, ostensibly thinking that she's the person who was in a car when they saw Emmett Till and made the identification for the other men to be able to grab him. No one saw her face, but they heard a lighter voice, as they said, which they presumed to be a woman. So I don't know that there is really any true and strong evidence, even with witnesses, that would be able to tie her in.
Yeah, you mentioned too, Rashonda, about publicity. But at this point, the family's all, if all these years later, regardless, that type of crime, murder in itself, but the type of crime this was, you can't expect people to just let go, right?
Right. I understand the family wanting some type of justice, but here goes America. That is America, unfortunately. And I don't fault the family for pursuing it. I just don't see that it will actually go anyplace.
Yeah, their family can be comforted, though, that this is the case that was the seminal moment in the civil rights movement. They can be comforted in some measure. I'm not saying that this is an ultimate comfort, but they need to know that because of this, there are sacrifices that are made every day for a larger good, and it's unfortunate that this happened. But something came out of this that changed America, and that, I think, is one thing that we can all look at and say that this was important, although we haven't gotten ultimate justice in the case.
Well, it changed America, but it seems like Rashonda and Tarver, that things have changed again.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, there's a changed America. At the time, it did.
Oh gosh. Well, look, some famous person said, "Keep hope alive," right?
Right.
I'm not feeling the hope right now, but we have to go on. But these things are cyclical. It's a big cycle. It goes around and comes around. We just have to really keep pressing and get that spirit, recapture that spirit that got us to this point where we are now.
Yeah. Well, Attorney Robert Tarver of the Tarver Law Firm in New Jersey. I got to look him up. I know he's a busy man, but look, if you ever need a good lawyer, look Robert Tarver up in New Jersey. This guy is just phenomenal. And of course,
Appreciate that.
when you're in Texas, look up Rashonda and the Defender Network. You're going to get some great news from there. Rashonda, we really appreciate you. And we appreciate all of you. Thanks so much for joining Let It Be Known. We will see you tomorrow.